They're everywhere, smiling at you, pretending to support you, praising your every move, but beneath that charm is a dagger, carefully hidden, waiting to strike the moment you become too trusting. These are manipulators, and today, they're more dangerous than ever because they don't look like villains. They look like friends, colleagues, partners, supporters. The modern manipulator isn't loud or obvious. They play the long game, and unless you're sharper than them, you'll lose everything without ever realizing you were being played. Niccolo Machiavelli didn't just understand manipulation. He mastered the science of reversing it. And in today's world, if you want to not just survive but dominate, you need to learn how to nice his tactics. Not with brute force, but with subtlety, silence, and strategy. Let's begin with the first genius tactic, strategic ignorance. The smartest manipulators will always try to trap you in a game you don't even realize you're playing. They'll bait you with fake kindness, feigned vulnerability, or dramatic stories, hoping you'll step in, offer help, or even worse, reveal something personal. Machiavelli's answer: act dumber than you are. Strategic ignorance is the art of seeing through the manipulation, while pretending not to. Don't correct them. Don't challenge them. Let them believe they're fooling you. Because while they think they're winning, you're collecting every weakness they reveal. The moment you confront a manipulator too early, you lose your advantage. Let them overplay their hand. Let them get arrogant, then strike, not with emotion, but with evidence and timing. Second, you must control the narrative. Manipulators thrive when they're the ones shaping perception. They twist facts, spin stories, and create chaos because confusion is their oxygen. Machiavelli would never let that happen. He believed the person who defines the narrative controls the outcome. You must master the power of framing. If someone spreads lies about you, don't just defend yourself. Change the story. Reframe their attack as desperation. Publicly express calm indifference. People trust confidence, not explanations. The more you explain, the more you look guilty. Never let your enemies dictate the terms. You must be the author of your image, even if it means turning cold. Third is to divide, and this is one of Machiavelli's oldest and most brutal truths. Unity among your enemies is a threat, so break it. Manipulators often work in pairs or groups. They whisper in circles, back each other up, and form subtle alliances. But those alliances are built on fragile egos and hidden jealousy. Your job isn't to attack them, it's to turn them on each other, feed their doubt, praise one of them more than the others, leak selective information, show curiosity about their relationships. Plant the seed of suspicion and let it grow. When they begin to distrust one another, their coordination collapses. You won't need to fight them. They'll destroy each other for you. Fourth, expose without accusing. Calling someone a manipulator rarely works. They'll flip the script, play the victim, and make you look paranoid. Instead, expose their patterns without direct accusations. Casually mention inconsistencies. Ask questions that make others notice the red flags. Use silence when they expect support. Mirror their tone with just enough detachment to make people uncomfortable. You're not attacking, you're letting reality leak through the cracks they try to seal. People hate being manipulated, but they hate being seen as gullible even more. Once you plant that suspicion, others will start connecting the dots themselves. You don't need to destroy their credibility. You just have to raise the doubt and step back. Fifth is using silence as a weapon. Manipulators thrive on your terror reactions. They want you to panic, defend, explode, because once you act, they can steer the conversation, label you emotional, or reframe your truth as instability. Machiavelli knew that silence isn't passivity. It's power. Stay quiet when they expect noise. Let their words echo in the room unanswered, forcing others to question their intent. Silence makes them uncomfortable, nervous, exposed, and when you finally speak, every word lands with 10 times the weight. Never explain more than necessary. The less you say, the less they can twist. Let them speak themselves into a trap. Let them drown in their own performance. Sixth, make them dependent on you. A manipulator's worst fear is someone they can't control. Flip the dynamic. Make yourself so useful, so central, that they need you more than you need them. Don't do it out of kindness. Do it strategically. Offer value they can't get elsewhere. Help them win, but only just enough. Give them results, then disappear for a while. Let them feel your absence. When someone becomes dependent, they lower their guard. They tolerate more, they start overlooking your moves. This is when you become untouchable, not because they like you, but because losing you would hurt them. It's a cold tactic, but Machiavelli didn't believe in fairness. He believed in leverage. Seventh, use their own tools against them. Manipulators use fear, confusion, and guilt to steer people. Reverse it. Make them afraid of what you might do without ever doing it. Be unpredictable. Be polite with a hint of coldness. Offer help with an unreadable expression. Apologize when they at least expect it, just to make them wonder what you're planning. Play their game better than they can. If they guilt you, thank them, then walk away with a smile. If they lie, act impressed, then ask a question that forces them to trip over their own fiction. The goal isn't to mirror their amount of revenge. It's to use their tactics with precision and detachment. You're not playing dirty. You're just refusing to play. Eighth, control your presence, your energy, posture, and tone. Either invite manipulation or repel it. Machiavelli understood that presence isn't about size or volume. It's about control. Walk slowly, speak deliberately. Maintain eye contact without flinching. When you enter a room, own it by doing. Nothing hurried. People who rush over, explain, or seek approval are the easiest targets. Your goal is to be unreadable but authoritative. When people can't figure you out, they stop trying to control you, because unpredictability is dangerous. You don't need to intimidate anyone, just eliminate all signs of emotional desperation. That alone makes you untouchable. Finally, the ninth most ruthless tactic is to let them win the small battles. Manipulators feed off resistance. They thrive when they know you're actively fighting them, but Machiavelli would often let people think they were winning while secretly setting them up for a bigger fall. Let them take credit, let them gloat, let them feel like they're in control. Meanwhile, gather information, influence, allies, prepare your move. The best revenge isn't loud, it's surgical. It's watching someone walk confidently into a map. They build for themselves because you made them feel invincible. You're not losing when you step back, you're baiting, and when you strike, it won't be personal. It'll be final. You don't beat the manipulator by being righteous. You beat them by being smarter, colder, more patient. Machiavelli's genius lies in understanding one brutal truth: power isn't taken by force. It's taken by perception, silence, and precision. The biggest mistake people make with manipulators is believing they can expose them through moral high ground. That if they just speak the truth loud enough, people will see what's really happening. But Machiavelli would laugh at that illusion. He knew that in this world, truth isn't what's real. His truth is what's perceived, and manipulators are masters of perception. That's why outsmarting them requires something far more dangerous than honesty. Requires strategy. The moment you think exposing someone will automatically win people to your side, you've already lost. People don't follow facts. They follow strength, confidence, and the illusion of control. Machiavelli's approach was never about being right. It was about winning. And to win against manipulators, you must understand how they control people, and then dismantle them silently. One threat at a time. Let's begin with a cold but essential rule. Manipulators always hide behind emotion. They weaponize feelings, not facts. They'll cry to avoid accountability. They'll smile while lying. They'll act offended the moment you confront them. This is by design. Machiavelli knew emotional manipulation is the easiest way to shut down logic. So if you react emotionally, even when you're right, you fall into their trap. They'll flip it. Suddenly you look unstable, angry, jealous. You become the villain in a story they created. The only way out: detached when they cry, observe when they yell, stay quiet when they accuse, ask questions. Make their emotional tactics collapse under the weight of your stillness. People respect emotional control. It makes them doubt. The ones who can't keep it together, even if they're the victim, don't be cruel. Be unreadable. When a manipulator realizes you feel nothing they can use, they become powerless. Next, understand this core law. People secretly respect the one who doesn't need them. Manipulators sense dependency like blood and water. They target people who seek approval, who over-explain, who need validation. The moment you act like you need something from them, attention, friendship, closure, they own you. Machiavelli believed that power lies in the perception of indifference. You don't chase, you don't explain, you don't beg. If they ghost you, stay gone. If they insult you, smirk and walk away. If they spread lies, say nothing and let time expose them. This isn't weakness, it's war, emotional. Detachment makes you terrifying to someone who survives on control. You starve them of the thing they crave most, a reaction. That's when their mask begins to crack. That's when the people around them start noticing who's really calm and who's performing. Then comes the tactic of subtle isolation. Most manipulators surround themselves with weak minds, people who will defend them out of fear, confusion, or blind loyalty. You don't confront these people, you isolate the manipulator by strengthening your alliances, quietly build trust with those around them, help them not with words but with results, support them in public, earn their respect through consistency. Over time, you become the one they go to for clarity. Eventually, the manipulator becomes unnecessary. People stop listening to them, they stop defending them, not because you told them to, but because you proved more valuable. Machiavelli would call this conquest through replacement. You don't destroy them, you just make them irrelevant. Another brutal tactic is to reveal their intentions without ever naming them. Say you know someone's trying to sabotage your image at work. Don't call them out directly. Instead, mention casually in a meeting or in front of others how some people use charm to hide their fear of being exposed, or how people who gossip the most are often the ones with the most to hide. You're not accusing, you're planting patterns. This creates psychological pressure. If the manipulator is guilty, they'll either overreact or go quiet, both of which look suspicious. If others will start to notice the behavior you've described, you've exposed the crime without needing to point fingers, and you've done it in a way that makes people think for themselves. This is Machiavellian subtlety at its peak, shaping perception while staying untouched. Now let's talk about the power of repetition and routine. Manipulators live off chaos. They love unpredictability because it gives them room to twist events, hide truths, and shift blame. But when you live with structure, when your behavior is stable, your reactions calm, your energy consistent, they find no openings. You become like a locked vault, predictable, clean, untouchable. Machiavelli admired the power of routine, not because it was boring, but because it made you trustworthy in the eyes of others and terrifying in the eyes of manipulators. If nothing moves you, they can't provoke you. If you don't get rattled, they lose their grip. Most importantly, when someone tries to paint you as unstable or dangerous, everyone around you remembers your pattern, your calmness, your logic, and their manipulation fails. But here's the real dagger. Sometimes the smartest move is to let them destroy themselves. Machiavelli believed in long games. Not every enemy needs to be confronted. Some should be left alone, watched, studied, and given, because the more power you give a manipulator, the more they expose themselves. If they think you're not a threat, they stop hiding. They get cocky. They start doing too much, lying too often, controlling too tightly, talking too loudly, and in time they'll hang themselves with their own ambition. You won't need to interfere. You'll just be the one everyone looks at when the mask falls off, the one who stayed composed, patient, and calculating. That's real dominance. That's what Machiavelli would call the art of silent revenge. The truth is, manipulators don't fear confrontation. They fear exposure. Not loud, dramatic exposure. Silent, surgical exposure, where they can't scream victimhood, where they can't twist the narrative, where the damage is done, and no one even looks at them the same again. And the only way to do that is to beat them at their own game, coldly, quietly, completely. Most people think beating a manipulator requires a loud confrontation, a righteous outburst, or a moment of cathartic justice. But Machiavelli knew that real power doesn't come from emotion. It comes from calculated patience. The most effective destruction happens without the atrix. The moment you let your emotions drive the strategy, you've already given the manipulator what they want, your predictability. Let's sharpen the blade. even further with tactical unavailability. Manipulators want constant access to you, your time, your energy, your mind. They thrive in spaces where boundaries are soft and presence is guaranteed. They inch into your routine like fog until you can't see where you end. And they begin. That's why you must become selectively unavailable. Not cold, not distant, just unpredictable. Machiavelli would never allow a predictable pattern to be used against him. So vanish occasionally, take longer to respond. Be kind but reserved. Let them wonder why your energy shifted and whether it had anything to do with them. This forces the manipulator into uncertainty, and manipulators hate uncertainty. Their game depends on knowing exactly where you are mentally and emotionally. When you become hard to read, they start to overanalyze, overextend, and eventually expose themselves. Then comes one of the coldest moves in Machiavelli's book: to reward what's useful, not what's loyal. Manipulators often try to buy your trust with shallow loyalty. They'll side with you in public. They'll echo your opinions. They'll even fight your enemies, temporarily. But Machiavelli taught that loyalty is cheap when it costs nothing, but what matters more is utility. How useful are they to your goals? How competent are they under pressure? Do they create more problems than they solve? The moment someone shows signs of manipulation, test their value, give them responsibility, let them prove themselves. Manipulators collapse under real pressure because their power comes from controlling narratives, not delivering results. When they fail, don't confront, just reallocate trust. Reward those who produce, not those who perform. This sends a message. You don't bond through emotion. You bond through results, and that terrifies manipulators because they can't fake value forever. Now sharpen this truth. Unless you explain, the more power you hold. Manipulators rely on explanations. The more you talk, the more they twist. The more you justify, the more they prepare their next move. Every explanation is ammunition they didn't have before. That's why Machiavelli operated on minimalism. Speak in facts, not feelings. Say just enough to move forward, then go quiet. If someone accuses you falsely, don't defend, redirect. If they insult you, don't react, observe. If they question your motives, don't explain, smile and say nothing. The manipulator thrives in storms, but silence makes them uncomfortable because silence suggests control. And control is a whilst it's language only the truly powerful speak fluently. Another brutal maneuver is to build a circle. They can't penetrate. Manipulators don't survive in strong environments. They survive in insecure, fragmented circles where gossip spreads, insecurities grow, and no one really trusts each other. That's why your greatest defense isn't individual, it's collective. Build a circle of thinkers, people who don't get baited by drama, people who operate on logic, not impulse. When your circle is strong, manipulators can't find weak spots. Their games fall flat, their whispers fall on deaf ears, and their presence becomes uncomfortable. Machiavelli always surrounded himself with men of merit, not sycophants, not cowards, not flatterers, because he knew that when the environment is solid, the parasite has nowhere to feed. And when a manipulator sees that they can't infiltrate your world, they'll either retreat or implode trying. Let's go deeper now into weaponized kindness.
Yes, you read that right, because sometimes that most Machiavellian move you can make is being kind, but not because you're
soft, not because you're naive, because you know exactly what you're doing. When a manipulator expects conflict and you offer calm generosity instead, you flip their expectations. It forces them into confusion. Now they can't label you, can't trigger you, can't play victim. They expected war and you offered peace. Misa, not out of fear but out of strength. But this kindness has a blade. It's conditional, controlled, and temporary. You offer it not as surrender but as strategy. When they lower their guard in response, that's when you move. That's when you pull your resources back, cut the tie, reclaim your power. And because they never saw it coming, the collapse hits harder. That's what weaponized kindness looks like: calm, subtle, and devastating. Now remember this cold commandment. Never try to teach a manipulator a lesson. That's your ego talking. The moment you think, I'll show them, You've lost control. Manipulators don't change from lectures. They change when they lose access, when their tactics stop working, when their image gets quietly dismantled, when the people around them stop reacting, not because someone yelled at them, but because nobody played their game anymore. Machiavelli would never waste energy teaching lessons. He would simply restructure the rooms so the manipulator had no power left to exploit. And if they screamed, no one listened. That's the only lesson that matters: silence, isolation, irrelevance. Not because you shouted louder, but because you stopped feeding them entirely. Lastly, there's the most vicious tactic of all: to become the mirror. Manipulators study people. That's how they win. But Machiavellians, we study them. We become their mirror. When they flatter, we flatter. When they withdraw, we withdraw. When they lie, we nod, we nod. We don't resist, we reflect. This makes them uncomfortable because they rely on control, and mirrors don't bend. They show the truth. When a manipulator sees themselves in you, calm, unreadable, calculating, they panic because now they're not in charge of the game. They're staring at someone who knows the script and is willing to burn it. You don't defeat manipulators by being louder or nicer or more righteous. You defeat them by being colder, smarter, quieter, by turning every strength they have into a liability. And when you do that with a smile, they won't even realize they've already lost.